Today I'm building a CE-2 on Tagboard. This is by far the most complex and difficult build I've ever attempted. But somewhere along the way I made a simple mistake that could have derailed this whole project. And if you're building one of these or a complex pedal, you'll want to stick around to the end and find out exactly how I dealt with it. At this point I've built literally thousands of pedals. Most have been at sea while serving as a chief engineer in the Royal Navy. And this one was absolutely one of the most difficult. It's certainly the biggest and it's certainly the most complex, and I certainly made the stupidest mistake. So here it is, the most insane circuit I've ever attempted. I mean, I can't believe I'm going to do this, but not only is it going to use a whole tagboard, so the whole strip, not only is it going to use one, it's going to use 3 whole strips of tagboard. That's like more than 3 pedals worth. I mean, I could probably get, what, 8, 10 pedals out of this normally. It's insane, but I'm going to anyway. And this is the enclosure I'm going to go with. This isn't just a chorus, it's a CE-2, one of the most iconic pedals ever made. This thing has 3 tagboards, dozens of jumpers, countless components, and of course a real MN3007 delay chip. If you like these sort of projects, please check out hellosailoreffects.com, where you can find all of my custom pedal builds. Thank you for buying pedals. It really does help keep this dream alive. This artwork is right up my street, you know, covered in tattoos, tattoo style. It's just right up my street. We've gone with Sonic Blue, aged nitrocellulose lacquer finish. I've only put one LED hole in there. I need to add 2 because of course we're going to have the flash for the rate in there as well, but I'll add that in a bit. It's blowing my mind. Anyway, this thing split up into 3 separate boards. Right now, if we put that to one side, we're going to be handling board 1. This is tagboard 1. This is the bit that controls the LFO and basically is the brains of this whole operation. It's also, in my mind, the best laid out tagboard on this whole board. It's the least complex. So if you start with tagboard 1, you can't go wrong. Now board 1 is the LFO and the light frequency oscillator, I think that stands for. Basically the blinking light that goes in line with the rate, and also the power section. Board 2, when we get to that, is going to be the delay chips, if you like, the expensive bit. And then board 3 is going to be mixing the signals together. We'll talk about them all as we're going. Stay tuned to the end and see if I can pull this off, because I have no clue whether I'm going to be able to do this. It's mad. And to be honest, it's a lot of money and a lot of time to sink into one pedal, not knowing whether it's going to be a success or not. So a little bit scared there. Thankfully, we have got on the Telecaster discussion forum, which is where I come across this, we've got a build document from Owlexifry. I'm definitely butchering that. Basically spelled Owlexifry. And he says, most sensible builders out there are putting time into designs, taking original circuits and PCB layouts and, you know, dip traces or similar, and making them more efficient. And he says that he's done a few tagboard builds and he got obsessed with it basically, and he wanted to build a modulation pedal for science. I think it's because he's awesome. So he says he decided to do the CE-2 chorus because he loves the sound. It's a relatively small circuit. Come on, mate, there's nothing small about this circuit. It's massive. Anyway, he says he somehow got it to fit on 3 tagboards of 18 rows each. Mental stuff for me. I'm a massive fan of this build. As far as I'm concerned, he's a legend. And the fact that he's pulled it off means that I should be able to pull it off. So, without further ado, let's move on to board 1, which is our LFO and power filtering. Here's all the components we're going to use for board 1. It's not all that much involved in this one, but there are a few odd values. Like, I just did not have a 33 ohm resistor. And it turns out when I digged through, come on Joe, proper English. When I dug through all of my components, I did. I've got this telly part, so obviously meant for the TV. 33 ohm, 2 watt, unopened packet of resistors. It's insane. I don't need this much. Luckily enough, this is going to be sat in the first tag on its own, so there's plenty of space around it. And then we've got a 47k next to it. No, sorry, a 4.7k next to it, and a 220 microfarad 220 UF next to it, which is of course polar. So there's our first three. As you can see on the drawing, they just go straight up and down on the tag board. So I'm going to go ahead and fit them in now. There we have it, our first three components added in. We've got our 33 ohm resistor. Yes, I know it's ridiculous size, but isn't it cool that it's older and it was meant for the TV? Then we have a 4.7k resistor. I have gone small just because it's the first 4.7k I come across. There's a few of them in this build and I found a strip of them, so I'm going with it. Then we've got a 220 microfarad 220 UF cap. Right, before we move any further, if you think I'm rushing through these parts and I'm not going into detail like I normally would, that's because this build is like massively advanced. I don't even think I'm going to be able to get this working. So if you think I'm going too fast, maybe build a few smaller things first, get your hand in and get used to the components and get used to reading the tagboard layouts, and then build up to this one. I mean, massive props to you if you're a beginner and you're trying to jump in here. That's fantastic. But, manage expectations and all of that. And I'd like to say also, I'm more than happy to answer any questions about this build or any other build on any of my videos. Just let me know. And I'm more than happy to answer anything that you guys want. So, where are we up to? Tag number 4. Let's have a look at our drawing. We can see that that's another 4.7k. But there's also this VR1 going in there. And this is what's going to set the voltage for this part of the circuit. VR1 isn't actually labelled up at what value it is. But if you look at the picture that was on Telecaster discussion forum, it clearly shows a 103 trim pot, which is a 10k trim pot. So I've got this Bourne's 10k trim pot. Brilliant. Now we can see that one leg of it, which isn't our wiper, goes into the 4.7k. Then next along is another leg that isn't a wiper. So if we look at our pot here, if I can ever get it to focus, right, if we look at our pot here, we can see that this center lug here, this is the wiper, and this is the one, if we look at our drawing, that's going to go into the 47 microfarad cap, which is the one in the furthest tag to the right. The other two legs, which is here and here, are the two ends of the carbon track. One of them is going to go into the 4.7k resistor, and the other one is going to go into the next tag along. So we're going to be sitting at an angle kind of like this on the board, so it's going to look diamond shaped rather than square, which I personally have never fitted one in this way round, but there you go. So we're going to have one leg going here, the next leg along is going to go into this tag here, and then the wiper, it's important it's the wiper, goes into this tag here, which connects to our 47 microfarad cap. Some progress made here. We have our three components in. All three legs of our 10k trim pot VR1 are soldered in. We've got our 47 UF or 47 microfarad, for those who hate me saying that, in here. Now next tags along is going to be two 10k resistors going into consecutive tags. But this second 10k resistor meets a 47 microfarad cap with its earth facing upwards, same as all the others. And we can solder all of these straight in. You'll notice there's a hell of a lot of wires floating around on this. And there's also a lot of link wires going between tags on here and tags, say from here to over here somewhere. I'm going to add all of them in last. And I will be adding them to the top of the board, even though I know they look worse at the top. I'm still going to do it anyway. And that's because later on when I have to fault find on this, no doubt I will, I can see where all the wires are going. So I don't have to mess about taking the boards out again. Right, I'm going to go ahead and crack on and get these old resistors fitted in and this nice Samsung 47 UF cap. Next on the cards is another 10k resistor, and that's going to fit in right next to where we just were. And then if we get our drawing up, we can see next in line is going to be a 100 NF, which is a 100 nanofarad, or a 0.1 microfarad if you want to be a smart ass, but 100 nanofarad. And then after that, we have this really weird sort of arrangement where we've got a 33k resistor going across some tags, and then going opposite way to it, making a cross, is a link wire. So I'm not going to be able to solder in one end of this link wire and one end of the 33k, because we're going to get onto our TL022, which is going to be fun. It's always fun adding an op amp to one of these tag boards. But first up, we're going to get these in place. Of course, being me, I haven't got a 33k. I did search, and I know someone's going to write in a comment saying use the correct resistor value, all this jazz. What I have got are these two 68k resistors that are slightly under spec, and I'm going to just put them together in parallel. If you put two resistors in parallel, as we know, it halves them. If we add them together like this, that would double them, but we're going to put them in parallel. And as you can see, there's more ways for the electricity, electrons, whatever you want to call it, to flow, which means that you get half the resistance. Right, so with this, I had to switch out the 33k resistor, which was my two 68k resistors. It was just too big. So I went with these smaller resistors, wired them in parallel. I've given them a little hump, mainly because we've got this wire going underneath, and we're also going to have some of our TL022 legs going through. Now, rather than just wiring the op amp straight in there, that would be silly because they don't like heat. I'm going to be using the socket. In the past, when I've done this, people will know that I normally attach just resistor legs or component legs to each one of these, which, you know, that's done me well throughout my building career so far. However, I've recently discovered a way of extending transistor legs thanks to Mr. Hubcap John. Thank you, John, for that. And I've just figured out also that I can probably apply that to op amps. And all you do is you take your strip board or your Veroboard, cut it to size, and then solder your op amp in there, and then you can just solder your component legs straight in here. But one thing I haven't done is I'm going to need to cut a channel down the center of these copper strips, because otherwise pin 1 and the opposite pin on the other side, I believe that's pin 5, sorry, are going to join together, and we don't want that. So I need to separate the two legs, so then there's a gap in the middle, by taking out one column even of copper strips here. Now, I know everyone hates me doing it, but I'm going to use a Stanley knife. Take the boy out of Liverpool, but you can't take the Liverpool out of the boy. Cue Stanley knife scouser joke. Right, so, and all I do is I just put the blade in the hole and then just do a little circle, cutting the copper trace either side, and then that is it. And I'll just go along and I'll do all of them, and then I'm going to solder our op amp to our Veroboard, and then I'm going to go along and find all of my component legs that I haven't used so far, and I'm just going to solder them in like a big spider. And then, of course, before we move on, I'm going to situate this above the board, sitting higher, because if I sit it down, it's going to fall. Oh no, it'll actually fit in there. Look at that. I'm not going to fit it above. We're doing this real time now. Look at that. It's going to fit right here, with the notch pointing the opposite way around to what I've got it now. The notch is going to point to the right hand side, and the legs will just stretch out and touch the tags that they need to, and I'll solder it all in. I've got to say, this board has been an absolute pleasure to wire up so far. Massive props to Alexifry. That's how I'm going to say it, Alexifry. Don't want to butcher his name there, but massive props to him for like laying this out. And actually, I got in touch with him on YouTube and asked if I could use his YouTube video as a sound sample, because his playing's beautiful. It displays how the pedal works perfectly, and well, that's just amazing. And he was quite happy to let me use it, so massive props to the guy. He did have one strange request, which was that he be credited with the tagboard layout. I mean, viewers of this channel will know that, of course, he should be credited with the tagboard layout. It's, in the Navy we would say it's nails. That means it's harder than a nail. It's so hard to do, to transpose onto tagboard, especially something this big. I mean, my foul treble booster is like, I don't know, 8 components, and I did an hour-long video on transposing that. Never mind tracing the circuit and then running it out onto a massive tagboard, or 3 tagboards with 4 op amps in total. It's insane. So he deserves all of the props possible. So I'm kind of in conversation with him right now. Hopefully throughout this video while I'm filming, I'll learn his real name, and if he wants his real name on here, I'll start referring to him by that as well. But cue much love for this guy, because he's made an amazing circuit and put it on the internet for free. I think that's fantastic. As you all know, that's exactly what I'm about. don't believe in hoarding knowledge. I believe in sharing it with everyone, and it just improves us all. Anyway, enough of me hero worshipping this guy. Let's get on and sort out our first op amp. So this was interesting. I had to do a little bit of tomfoolery to get it past this resistor here, whatever, but I finally got all 8 legs of this op amp, or of the socket, wired in. I also added in this little link wire here. Now there's 3 tags left, and in these 3 tags we have a 47k resistor, a 1 meg resistor, and a 6.8k resistor. They just go straight up and down like the rest of this circuit. It's really simple to follow and really easy. Here's our final 3 resistors put in on this board. Next up is all of the link wires, and there's quite a few on this. If we get our drawing up, we can see on this top side here there's loads of ground connections going in. Then there's a couple of brown link wires here, and one even goes from the top tag row to the bottom tag row, or row of tags, whichever way around you want to say it. I'm just going to fill in all of the top link wires, and then I'll go along and fill in all of the bottom link wires. I'm going to do them all in the same colour, which is blue, because I'm wiring this pedal up in blue. There's our first board for our power supply and LFO wired up. The last thing to do is to add in our TL022, which is this. I add this in now just because it's a pain once you get this into the enclosure to be able to do it. So, first thing to note is if we look at our drawing, we can see that the little notch on our op amp, which is this end here, points to the right. Okay, so let's line it up there. Then we take our op amp and just squeeze the legs together slightly. I know someone's going to tell me off for not having my wrist earthed. Come on, Joe, get your words out. It's where you wear a little bracelet that attaches you to ground or whatever to make sure there's no static. Whatever, I haven't got that. And then I'm just going to push it in there like any other op amp. There you go. We are in with our TL022. Now, let's move on to board 2. Okay, so this is Tagboard 2. This is where it can all go wrong. This is the sensitive board where you've got the delay chip and the clock timer. You need to pay particular attention to these and make sure you don't mess up the connections, because if you mess up these connections, you can short them out and maybe write off your chips. And let's face it, they're in short supply. Now we're on to the second tag board, thankfully. Now this is the real important one. Like I've said, this is the one that houses the delay chip and the clock timer. So the MN3007 and the MN3101. But this is really what sets this one apart from something like a PT2239 chorus or delay, like I build myself, the Seawolf delay, and all that sort. All them effects run similar. However, they're not analog. They're not like this. This is actually analog, and this is the board that does it. So no messing about on this one. And as we can see on our drawing, we've got a 1 microfarad cap, a 1 UF cap first, but then we've got 2 of these op amps. We've got the delay chip and then the clock timer straight after it, which means we're going to need some sockets. And check this out. Look at that. My buddy Jimmy from Scandals Repairs sent me over these. He ordered the wrong amount of IC sockets. I don't use that many of them. So he's basically supplied me for the rest of my life with sockets. So thank you, Jimmy, for that. Much appreciated. So we're going to fit 2 of these bad boys in there. But first up, we've got a 1 microfarad cap. Here's where to show you where I completely messed up. Let's look at our drawing again. We can see that the first cap is a 1 microfarad. Yeah, well done, Joe. However, if you look at it, it's polar. It's not polar, so it doesn't have a negative side to it. And I've of course chose caps that have negatives, and that's because I've run out of non-polar caps. Fantastic. Used them all in fuzz pedals. Not great. So what am I going to do? The only thing I can do is use these, which I'm sure some of you will know that I'm absolutely ecstatic about. I've got these 470 NF Mullard tropical fish caps. He said mustard caps then. I love these things. They sound great to my ears and they look amazing. All right, they're going to be slightly below one microfarad, but I imagine the early ones of these, the caps will have drifted. You know, the tolerance isn't exactly high on the caps that they use in the first place. So I think we're going to be all right. And because the 1 microfarad's going at the start and the end, there's loads of space to squeeze these in here. I'm going for it. I'd love to know in the comments if you love or hate the fact that I'm going to add massive tropical fish caps stacked together just to get 1 NF instead of ordering a nice easy small 1 NF cap. You know, this week the Joe Bonamassa video went live, the overrated special, where they used cheap components and everyone seemed really happy with it, but it just made me feel a bit crap. You know, it's not really Hello Sailor Effects if I'm not going over the top and being extravagant. So what I'm going to do is just go all out on this one. This is a ridiculous build in the first place, isn't it? Let's face it. Now, all I'm going to do is stack them together and get them soldered into the first lugs. There's them in place. I haven't soldered them in because, in fact, we've got to put our delay chip, or MN3007 socket into them lugs. Next up, just to make it easy, I'm going to go ahead and add these to Tagboard and extend the legs just like we did on the last board. Really helpfully, I seem to have had my microphone die on me. Cheers, deity, whoever makes this microphone. Brilliant. So I've got lots of footage of me making the op-amp sockets, getting them all sorted out, and then adding in all of these components along the way, including testing the transistors, orientating them correctly, and adding in things like doubling up for the resistors. You know, there's 3 resistors here together to make 330k, and then over here we've got 2 together to get us 33k. Unfortunately, pretty much everything apart from the first little bit where I made these caps or put these caps together, there's no sound. Brilliant. So what have I done? These 2 op-amps here, or op-amp sockets, I did the same thing as I did on board 1, only this time it was a bit more complex because some of the legs don't connect to tags on the outside edge. I've just run this wire here to connect 2 of them together. Here we've got 2 of the legs that go into the same tag. Fine, all easy stuff. Then we've got a 56k resistor here. I had to double 2 of them up to get the value. Absolutely fine to do. I'm sure there'll be people in the comments telling me that I should be buying the correct value resistors, yada yada yada. I don't care. That's what I've done to make it work. Over here, when we get to our diodes, you'll see that on the drawing, they are 914 diodes, 1N914. They're just fast switching diodes. I have indeed used 1N4148, or at least for this position I have. That's what I'm going to use because they're just a more modern, higher spec version to my mind. Whatever, that's what I'm using. The transistors are 2N5088, as we can see on our drawing. For these, all I did was test them with the old Peak Atlas DCA55 to get the right pin out. That way you cannot be wrong. There's no point in going through this massive build, putting it all together, and then it not working because I've gone off a pin out on the internet that isn't right for the transistor I've got in front of me. Just buy one of these and test it. If you're going to buy one of these, it'd be greatly appreciated if you went through the Amazon affiliates link in the description. I get a little bit of a kickback, which helps me buy stuff for the show, and you know, it brings value to you guys because I'll have more stuff to show. Also, there's no extra charge to yourself. It's just the normal Amazon prices. Now is the last 2 components, which is a 470 ohm resistor going in first, and then last is a 1 microfarad cap, and of course I'm using 2 of my tropical fish caps stacked together to make 1 microfarad. Let's get them fitted. That's all of our centre line complete, even though I missed half the video. Thank you very much, microphone. Still fuming about that. Right, now we're moving on to the outside edge, and I like to start in the top left corner, and we can see that we have a link wire going into the first tag, and then it misses 2 tags and it goes in to the next tag along, which is the first pin in this op amp here in the top row. Perfect. So it kind of goes like that, and all I'm going to do is take a bite of wire. As we know, a bite means a length of wire in the Navy or at sea. I'm not a deckhand. I don't have anything to do with wires and ropes and cables and all that jazz. It's far too cold outside for me. I'm an engineer. Right, so we're going to take it, tin both ends, Wet the Tip, hey, tin both ends. Oh, I gotta say thank you to everyone who bought a Wet the Tip t-shirt on the launch. It was mad. There's just, I think my new merch supply is insanely good. The t-shirts are so much better, Great England. The quality is so much better. And I like the new Wet the Tip design. I'm a fan. And to be fair, it's coming across in sales because the old one wasn't selling that well after the initial launch, and this one's selling great, so thank you for that. Right, there's our first link wire in. Of course, it's blue to go with the CE-2 sort of theme. We have got a red link wire, which is going to go, if we look at our drawing, you'll be able to see that, a red link wire that goes through all of the tags. I'll fit that off camera, you don't need to see me fit that. But before we get to that, we've got another load of orange link wires coming in this next tag along. But it's also got a 47 PF cap in there. So all I'm going to do is I'll clean the cap ends, of course. I'll put the 47 PF cap going in to where it goes, which is this tag here. In fact, I'm going to have to lift it up and above. So the 47 PF cap now is going to go just between the two holes in the center. As if you look at our drawing, we can see he's gone between the two tags as if there's no holes in the center. That's great, really good way of doing it. However, it's awkward for this one because the components I'm using is like bigger than that gap. Of course it is. So I'm just going to add it into the center, and then for the link wires, I'll just add them on the outside edge. So there's our first cap. I'm going to go ahead and put all of the link wires in, and then we'll come back and finish off the components. There's all of our outside edges wired up. We've got all the link wires in, 100k resistor on the bottom. We've got our diode, resistor and cap on the top row. Snake's wedding of wires going on here. But to wire this up, all you have to do is look at the diagram. That's been drawn amazing, by the way. Massive clap to the guy making this. It's such a superb project. I'm blown away by it. Anyway, this is our board number 2. So we've got board number 1 and board number 2. One more board to go, and then we can get them in our enclosure. Looking at this, I still think that I'm going to go with the enclosure. I'm going to put board number 1 sideways on there. Board number 2 is probably going to go that way there, and then board number 3 can go in this side here, and that means I've got plenty of space to wire everything up. It's still excessive, but well, there you go. What do we think so far? Tagboard 3 is where we get all of the compilation of our whole build. So we have the normal signal coming in and bypassing out, which is what we would call analog drive-through. If you're doing a wet-dry mix, you really need that analog drive-through so then you don't have any phase issues. It's real simple to do, and this is the board that provides that. The question is it going to pass signal and have our analog drive-through? And the other question is there going to be any sort of chorus delay signal coming from our expensive, ridiculous MN3007 chip? And now we're on to the third board. Thank God. This has been a long old build, this one. Now this was kind of complicated. As you can see on the drawing, there's a lot going on this board. It's kind of all over the place. And some of the values are a bit mental, like 33 NF. I don't have 33 NF, so I'm going to have to make them up. Same with 8.2 NF. I don't have any of them. I'll have to make them up. So I've laid out all of my parts in front of me with the capacitors. I've started left to right for the center of the board, and then all the outboard caps are over here. And I've just got my resistors in a pile over here ready to go, just so then it's clear in my head what's going where. Now we're going to start off from left to right as ever, and if we look at our drawing, we can see that the first cap handily is a 33 NF, so 33 nanofarad. To make this one up, I'm going to be using a 10 NF and a 22 NF. Now this 22 NF is a Mullard tropical fish cap. It's an old one that's been reclaimed, and it's slightly over spec, so it's roughly 23 NF. 23 add 10 in parallel equals 33 NF, and that's going to go straight up and down from this end lug here. There's our first cap in place, or rather caps in our case. Next up, we're going to have a 3.3 NF cap going straight from the top to the bottom, but this time the top end is going to have a 10K resistor going from the same second tag along on the top row down to the third tag on the bottom row, and then another 10K resistor going from the same tag on the top row going to the fourth tag on the bottom row. I'm not going to be able to solder this second resistor in on the bottom row because we've got some other components going in there, but as far as the rest of it, we can get that soldered in now. There's our 10K resistors and 3.3 NF cap now in. Next up, if we look at our drawing, we can see that we've got another 10K going in right at the bottom of this 10K and going up to the third tag along on the top row. And then coming from that tag, we've also got our transistor, which we'll deal with in a second. But before we get to that, we've also got a 470 PF capacitor, which I'm going to use this one, which is a K40Y-9, Soviet made in Ukraine actually, but Soviet made paper in oil cap. These are quite sought after in the guitar world, and actually I've just finished helping Guitar Pedal X, my friend Steph, compile a list of capacitors for an article he's writing. Absolutely amazing. His work's amazing, so if you don't follow Guitar Pedal X, please take the time to go and check them out, because unbelievable. But he's going to go through different types of caps and why I choose them and what I like about them. So fantastic. Anyway, so first up, we've got our 10K. I'm using these carbon film, these old ones. There's hundreds of 10Ks on this board, and I'm just going to use these for every single one. So this one is going from the 10K that we've got in place here that we haven't soldered in. Oh, let's orientate it the right way around. We'll have the orange ring facing the same way on them all, shall we? Why not? So it's going in there, and then it's going to the third tag along on the top row. Now this third tag looks like it's going to be a bit of a pain because there's a few components going in there. So we'll come back to that tag. But this bottom row, all that we've got is an 8.2 NF cap coming out of it, which I'm going to solder outside of this centre board. So I can solder this in place. Get a bit of wet in the tip on the go. Hey. Oh man, again, thank you to everyone that bought the Wet the Tip t-shirts on their release. Still blows my mind that people buy this stuff. Anyway, next up is the 470 PF cap, and that goes from this tag here, third tag on the top, to the fifth tag on the bottom. Is that right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, the fifth tag on the bottom. Now, if I put that in as it is, it's pretty much going to stretch right across there. I don't know if you can see that. What I like to do is, once I've cleaned the legs off, because, you know, it is an old cap, the legs do get a bit oxidized. I'm going to bend the legs over, back on themselves, as I'm sure many of you have seen me do a million times before, and make like this triangle shape. And then I'll take a bite of the leg and just pinch it round on both sides. And all that's going to do is mean that the cap will sit off the board, which means that it's going to be out of the way of all the other components, which is fantastic. But it's also going to mean that this long cap is going to fit in the centre here without fouling any of the tags. And when I've bent it over, I've made sure that I've got the K40Y-9 at the top, just because it's a brand name thing, isn't it? I know it shouldn't matter, but it really does matter to me. So as much as everyone on the internet absolutely despises the fact that that I value brand name, whatever. Right, now this cap goes into this tag on the bottom row with nothing else going into it. So if we make sure the cap's central, we can solder this bottom row in. Ooh. Just try not to burn it with the soldering iron. Well done, Joe. There we are. And now if we bend it up and have it in place, we could probably now, because this is in place and going diagonal, what I'm going to do is just pinch it and twist it so it goes straight across. Double check that it's not fouling any of my resistors, which it isn't. Brilliant. And it just looks better going straight across, but also it means that when we come to fit our transistor next, the transistor isn't going to touch this cap. It's kind of out of the way like that, which is brilliant. The transistors are, again, same as the last ones in here. They are the 2N5088. You can use, I would suspect, any NPN silicon transistor, like two N3904s, anything like that will probably work in this situation. But because it's down as these ones, I'm just going to use them. Now, even though we've used these on previous boards in this build, and I know the pin out, I'm still going to check it with the Peak Atlas DCA55. Now, actually, I got a question on one of my other videos asking what I thought about the DCA75, which that can test JFETs as well. And this will test MOSFETs to an extent, but not fully. But the DCA75 does a lot of them. And honestly, I'm considering upgrading, but we'll see. If everyone buys one of these in the affiliates link, I'll be able to afford it. So on our drawing, the collector is going miles. Oh, I've just seen that. So let's have a look. On our drawing, you can see the collector is crossing loads of these tabs and going right the way along. I'm going to have to run that on the outside of the board. I'll extend that leg. Don't worry, I'll show you how to do that. So if we look at this, the emitter, which is the blue, blue wire, is going to the bottom tag, next one along from our 470, and then the base, which on R1 is the green one. So the base, which is the green one there, is going to go to the same tag. I don't know why I'm pointing over there, like you can see where I'm pointing because it's off camera. So the green one, which is our base, is going to the same tag on the top row as our 470 NF. So it's kind of going to go stretching right across there. It's a bit of an odd stretch that, but whatever. I can make it work. I've got to say, I don't agree with people like moaning about the way that circuits are laying out when someone's took the time to do something this complex for free. I think it's amazing that that we have this free resource out there to build these, and just because a couple of components are stretching all over the place, well, who am I to complain about that? It's my job just to make it work. Now I'm having trouble making this transistor reach. I could extend that leg, but what I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to put the transistor into this tag here, and I'm going to solder it in place, so then I know that I've at least got one leg in the right hole, if you like. I know that this leg needs to be extended to right the way over here somewhere. We'll deal with that last. But next, what I'm going to do is this center leg, which we devised was our base, has got to go into this tag here. It won't reach, so all I'm going to do is just solder it to the leg of this K40Y9 470pf cap, because that's going into that tag anyway, so it will make the circuit. So if I just bend that leg up so it touches the leg on the Russian, or the Soviet, more accurately, it's not Russian, is it? The Soviet cap. So if I solder it to that, and then when I solder the Soviet cap in place, we should have the correct circuit. It doesn't matter where it attaches as long as it does attach. Right, now let's straighten that cap up. After all, looking good is 9/10 of it, isn't it? Let's face it. Right, our cap's in place, our transistor's in there, and it's just this one leg now. If we look at our drawing again, we can see that the collector goes to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the 7th tag along. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It goes to the 7th tag along. Now, that's a hell of a stretch. What I'm going to do is get a component leg and stretch it right the way over here and drop it into the center. I'll tell you what, yeah, I'm going to drop it straight into the center here. And I'm going to do it with a component leg so then it's stable. Although, technically, I could just run a wire. Look at this. So another thing you can do is if I run a wire straight close to the body of this transistor and just run it round and down the center of here, that'll work. So that's what I'm going to do. Now, there's several ways I can run this. I can either run it through the hole here, straight down underneath the board and pop up in a location that we want to go to. So we'll go down a hole in the center, and then I'll just poke it through the hole coming through the tag. That would probably be the best way to do it. However, this is a complex build, and I know later on when this doesn't work first time, which it probably won't, I'm going to be chasing my tail with my audio probe trying to figure out what's going on. And it's just going to be handier if I can see this wire. If I built 5,000 of these, I will probably I will probably be running it under the board, but I haven't. To say that this was awkward to fit would be an absolute understatement. So we've got our 33 NF cap in place. We've also got our 10K resistor going straight up and down. Now, this is where it gets fun. Again, I've soldered in a 10K resistor at the top up here when I shouldn't have, because there is another 10K resistor going from here down to the next tag along on the bottom. Brilliant. I can deal with that, whatever. But before that, the next tag along, oh no, from the same tag, tell a lie. There you go. If you look at our drawing, from the next tag along from our 10K resistor, where our new 10K is going to go in, if that makes sense, there's a 4.7K resistor that stretches right the way underneath all this stuff and goes over to this empty tag here, which then goes to another board to our delay chip. Brilliant. I'm tempted to run it under the board, but I'm not going to. I'm going to persevere, and I'll try and slot it through under here, and I'll also get our 10K resistor going from up here down to here. And as you can see on our drawing, I cannot solder in the bottom tag because we've got the emitter of our next transistor going in there, but I'll be able to solder in the top tag and get everything tidied up. Man, this is getting complex. Well, there's our components now in. I did put a bit of heat shrink around our 4.7K resistor, just because I was worried about it fouling something else while it was in there. Seemed to make sense. Next up, we've got a transistor going in there. Again, it's a 5088, same as all the others. And in this one, it's saying that it faces with the flat side to the right, so we'll start off with it that way. And then we can test it using our Peak Atlas DCA55, of course, as ever, because measure twice, cut once and all of that. I know we're bang on about it, but it really is important because look how much effort's gone into building this so far. We're talking 3 tag boards, chock full of components. And if I'm not testing the transistors as they go in, they could be the single point of failure, and it just seems silly. So we can see that the red is our collector, and that goes to the top pin. Yeah, that's right. So we can poke that up there like that. We can see the green is our base, which goes diagonally across to the next pin along. Great. And then we can see that the blue is our emitter, which goes into the same pin as our 4.7K and our 10K. Brilliant. So it does actually indeed go the way that it says on the drawing, which is always nice. Now I'm just going to slot these 2 bottom legs in first, slide them in as far as they'll go, and slide it in the same tag as we run the collector on our last transistor. Next on the cards is an 8.2 NF cap. Now, of course, I haven't got an 8.2 NF cap. It's a bit of a random value. What I have got is this 6.8 NF cap and a 2 NF cap. 6, 7, 8. I'm going to go with that should be okay. These are Suflex caps. Rather nice, but they do go out of tolerance with heat, so I'll have to be careful with that one. And then we've also got this Suflex cap, completely different. There's another nice one. These are a bit fragile too, so I'm going to have to be careful here. Heat is not your friend with these ones. Now this cap is going straight up and down. So all I'm going to do is I'll take the leg of this one and bend it out, and that can go into our tag. And then I'll take the leg on this side, and I'm just going to attach this cap to it and run them up next to each other, and then run that leg down, kind of like a McDonald's sign, if that makes sense. And that can go in. And then if we look at our drawing, we see that the 8.2 NF cap goes straight up. However, coming out of the top tag, we have another 10k resistor, which is just going down at a diagonal before it meets another 3.3 NF cap. So I'm going to go ahead and fit all of them in now. But before we do that, I'll just show you how I make this cap. So I've bent the leg over on this one, and I've bent the leg out on this one. These centre legs, oh, I've just realised what I'm doing. I'm adding these in series. Can anyone see what the problem is? If I'd have added these in series, what would happen? They minus off each other in a way. What I need to do is add them in parallel. So I'm going to bend both the legs out here. Look at that. That's me not paying attention. That would have been worse than just using the 6.8 NF cap. So I'm going to use the long legs on this one to wrap around the legs on this one and then carry on out to the tags. So if I bend them in on themselves, being careful not to snap them because they can be a bit fragile, like a modern day teenager. Now, to be fair, my 18-year-old isn't too bad. He's just got back from holiday from Turkey with his girlfriend. Looked like he had a fantastic time. While the rest of us were stuck here working. Brilliant. Oh, that's probably a message of me now. Right, I'm going to wrap the legs around and then we can solder them on in situ. Bit of an awkward shaped caps these are to work with. The two of them together, I've got to say. And it would have been better if I had an 8.2 NF cap, but I just haven't got one. Or if I have, it's somewhere in my stash and I just don't want to dig through it all to find one. That's more accurate, to be fair. I'm going to actually use this little nub here to go into one of the tags, probably that side there, and I'm just going to snip that longer leg off. But on the other side, I'm going to do it the opposite way round, and I'm going to use the longer leg to go in the tag just so then it can reach. I mean, it should reach anyway, but we'll see. Now, this is going to go in like so. The only issue I've got now is this Suflex cap is going to be poking over this. No good, so maybe if I go the other way around, let's see. I can see that I've made a mistake here. No, I'm going to have to make these sit higher. Now, the question is, if I make them sit higher than the tag board, is it going to fit into our enclosure? Bearing in mind that this tag board is going to be situated on the side here, and we've got our centre tag board, which is this one, going to be going here like this. So actually, we have kind of got enough space for this to sit off the board quite a bit, so that's not too bad. It's always worth checking. Okay, so some progress made here. We have our caps and stuff in place. I've went ahead and fit the next 100k resistor that you can see on the drawing here, and also the 10k resistor going into the same tag in the top row. The other end of this 10k is just floating at the minute because it's going to attach to our dual op amp. So our 4558, our JRC 4558. You can use any op amp. You could use a TL022, which happened to be my favourites. I'm going to use a 4558 just because it says it on the drawing. Now, to do the 4558 op amp, I'm going to do the same as we've done on all the others. I've got my tiny bit of Vero. I'm going to cut some holes down the centre and then attach the socket to it, ensuring that the notch out of the socket is pointing to the right hand side when I fit it. And if you look on our drawing, you can see that the legs are kind of all over the shop on this one. So I'm just going to attach all of the legs together, and then I'm going to attach all the legs onto this and then slide them into the relevant parts of the board. You'll notice that pin 5 on the 4558, the bottom, in fact, is that pin 5? No, it's not. It's pin 4 of the 4558 is a ground pin. So that's going through the hole in the board on this drawing and coming out to the 4th tag from the right hand side. I don't know if I'm going to run that under the board yet, or if I'm just going to run a wire over the top of the board and straight to the tag. I'll kind of decide that when I get to it, but I will be attaching, instead of doing a component leg to that one, I'll be attaching some of my silicone wire just so then I can run it. Here's an interesting part. So we've got our op amp socket in place. These two legs here are attaching either side of our 10k resistor as per our drawing. Brilliant. Then we've got this leg here is going round and going to the fourth tag from the right, which is our earth, or it's a negative, should I say. And then this bottom tag or bottom pin over here, which is actually pin 5, is coming along and going to the third tag along in the top row, and that's where the power is going to go into it. This leg here, which is tag number 2, has this 47k resistor going into it, and that's coming from over here, from this leg here. All I'm going to do is I'm going to run a resistor across here, across this bit here, and I'm just going to let it sit up against here without obstructing the top of this, so we can get the op amp in, and then I'll bend the leg round and slot it in right there. I might put a bit of heat shrink around it, or maybe a bit of shielding or something, but it's going to go from here over to here. Once that's soldered in, that's all of the legs soldered in, with the exception of these two here, which, as we can see on our drawing, will have further components going in. But we'll deal with them after we've sorted out this 47k. I've went ahead and fitted our 47k resistor, and also the next resistor along, which is a 10k, going in a diagonal across. I haven't soldered this bottom tag, which is the third tag from the right, because we've got the emitter of our last transistor going in there. You'll be glad to hear it's the last one. I certainly am. I'm getting rather burnt out by this project. It's a lot of components, so I'm happy to see it's coming to an end. Now, I'm again going to test this transistor just to make sure we get them all in the right space, but it's looking like it goes this way round, where the emitter goes to the bottom, the collector goes to the top, and the base goes diagonally across to the second tag along in the top row. If that's correct, then we're all good. But let's check with our Peak Atlas DCA 55. It's been a hell of a slog, this project, because there's just so many components on so much tagboard. It's been fun. Right, NPN silicon. Red is the base, which is going to the second tag in the top row. Good. Collector, hopefully blue. Yes, it is. And then the emitter is green. That's spot on. So we know we're going the right way round. And everything is as the drawing states it is, which is fantastic. I'd love to know if anyone's planning on building this. It's a hell of a thing to take on. And I definitely wouldn't say do it as your first pedal, but it's worth a go. Right, so actually I'm putting that in the wrong one. It goes in there. Straighten them out. There. Now if we just take a quick look, again we can see that our red lead from our op amp goes into the top row here. Great. Nothing else goes into this bottom one, so we can solder the bottom one, we can solder the top one. However, the base has a 1k resistor going in there, so we can't solder that. I will indeed fit a 1k resistor. But what I've got is this. It's a high precision resistor. These are super expensive, ridiculously expensive because of the precision. This is a 1k.07. So it's basically bang on 1k. And that's going to go straight up and down on the second tag from the right hand side. So I'm just going to go ahead and fit that now. And then that way I can solder all of these in together at the same time. Straighten them up, and now I can solder every single tag, which well, all 4 of these tags anyway. There. Now after a quick tidy up of this, we're going to get on to our last cap on the board, which is a 47NF, I believe. Yeah, 47NF. I've got this TCC cap. I love these. I managed to buy a bunch of them. They're old. They sound good. They test good all the time. I'm really happy with them. And it seems fitting that we squeeze at least one big cap on this board, even though there's There's some pretty mental component choices here because we've had to double up quite a bit. So I'm fairly happy with what we've got on the board. And of course we can solder this straight in. In the spirit of actually finishing this project, I'm going to go ahead and crack on with the components going on the outside of the board. If we take a look at our drawing, you can see that this is quite numerous. We've got on the bottom row an 8.2 NF cap, and we know that our 8.2 NF cap is going to be a 6.8 NF and a 2 NF cap together, so that's going to be quite big. I'm just going to go ahead one by one in a row and copy this drawing exactly. I'm going to solder the components in as I go, but instead of following the drawing where it links into the tags, what I'm going to do is go into these center holes. The center holes on the tags, they're not shown on this tagboard drawing. Maybe the tagboards that they were working off didn't have them, whatever. But I'm just going to solder the resistors going from the center tag along and along and along. The same as we do on all of our builds. I'm just going to do the exact same thing. Right, time to get real for a second here. This is the last board finished. Look at the state of this. If you're planning on building this one, I highly suggest that you get the right components and not double things up, triple things up. It's just ridiculous. I mean, come on now. That's just not sensible for anyone. And it's also messed me up for the way that I was going to lay out my enclosure. So, the enclosure plan, here's our enclosure. Awesome. Still need to drill that extra hole. Well done, Joe. But the enclosure was meant to be board number 1. The first board will be wired up going this way. Board number 2 going this way. And then board number 3 going this way. But as you can see, there is absolutely no way that board's going to fit in there. Now, I could change them around and put board number 2 up here and board number 3 down here, but that would just mess me up. I can't do it. So now the plan. I'm going to try, if I can, and squeeze in the stomp switch all the way down here, and also the controls up here with the 2 boards side by side here, and they're going to sit quite high and right next to the to where the pots go, and hopefully I'll be able to point the pots upwards or something like that and get these 2 boards in here. And then this final board is going to sit in the lid. I hate doing this because you've got to run wires over, but it's what I used to do for my my free range pedals. This is going to sit smack bang in the middle, and that should, he says, give me enough room to close the lid, and I'll just run a like an umbilical cord over and then to the various bits. This is one hell of a pedal. I mean, just look how many components are there. That's like 6 pedals worth of large Hello Sailor Effects pedals that I would normally do, all in one enclosure to achieve one task. I have no clue if this is going to work, and to be perfectly honest, I don't expect it to work. I'll be amazed if it passes signal when I've finished. Now, I can see that I haven't added in the op amps for this board, which is the important op amps because it is, of course, the clock timer and our delay chip. I have them here. There's our board, and if we get up our drawing, we can see that the board is situated with the op amps to the left hand side, and our first board is the MN3007, and we can see that our little notch points to the right hand side. So if I just bend them components out the way so I can get it in there, we can put that in, and our little notch is going to point to the right hand side, and I'll just push that in. Done. Hopefully I'll never have to touch that again. And I know before someone says it, the static on my hands can absolutely destroy that. And they're basically vintage and not made anymore, are they? All of this stuff is long gone. And now our 3101 is pointing in the opposite direction. So make sure that on this one, instead of it being a notch, you'll see that this one has a dot on it. It means the same thing. And that's going to be pointing in the opposite direction. So they're almost facing each other. Let's add that in there. Give it a squeeze. There's them fitted. So I can bend them components back into place. Good. Now, I'm going to go ahead and try and get everything in the enclosure. Now the question is, do you think I'm going to be able to achieve this? Do you think it's going to work first time? Do you think I'm going to be able to fault find and get it fixed? Do you think, and this is a big one, that I'm going to squeeze all of this into that enclosure? Let me know in the comments. In my experience, this is the bit that can make it all go wrong, the wiring. Now, the reason why it can all go wrong isn't because it's the most difficult. It isn't because it's the most complex bit. It's because it's really long, really boring and really tedious. And I know that I tend to go into autopilot. I'll watch something on YouTube or whatever I'm watching. I'll lose myself connecting it all up and I'll put something in the wrong tag. It's just a fact of life. I know I'm going to do it. So what I suggest is every couple of wires, just go back through your work and double check that the tags that you've put wires into are the tags that they need to go into. There we go. I managed to squeeze all the tag boards in there. Fantastic. It looks insane. I'm loving this project. Now, I'm going to start off with the first board, which if we look at our drawing is the top board on our screen. However, I put this thing in here, which is just one of the cables. I thought I was going to add in wire to each bit that was coming off each board. I didn't bother. It's easier to do it when it's in situ, but because this is going to annoy me flapping round, I am going to attach it to where it's going. And if we look on our drawing, we can see that it is indeed going from the third tag along on our second tag board there, and it's just going straight up to these three tags that are joined together on the first tag board. It doesn't matter which one of these it goes into because they are basically all connected. So I'm just going to run that across there like that, give it a snip, and then I'll solder that in place, and that gets that out the way, and then we can concentrate on tag board number one, which is of course where I'm going to start. Now let's work off our first board. So if we look at our drawing, we can see on the top row, which for me is this outside edge here, on the top row we've got our first tag is going to 12 volts DC. So that is going to be our DC power supply over here. Now don't worry, whoever buys this pedal from me or wins it in a raffle or whatever I decide to do with it, I'm sure I'll have decided by the time I edit this, maybe not, we'll get a power supply with it, just a wall power supply. If not, get yourself a gig rig power supply, the modular one, and you can have anything you like. You can have any voltage you like. Who knows, maybe I'll even put it on my board. But anyway, the first one here, the top half of this 33 ohm resistor is our 12 volts in. So I'm going to run 12 volts. I'm going to run the wire coming through here, or maybe round the back here actually, round the back here, up this centre line and round and through to these two pins here on our DC jack. Then also, if we go across to the third tag along, we've got this row of black wire which goes to ground and then also goes off, if you look at our drawing, down and goes to the earth on the opposite side of tag 2. So I'm also going to wire that in. So there we have our top row earth and 12 volt DC wired in. I've also run, oh look at that, I haven't soldered it onto that tag. That would have been a mistake. I mean, it would have been air through the enclosure anyway, but I hate that. Yeah, so I've run this this buzz bar, we like to say in the Navy. I've run this buzz bar across here like an earth point across the two jacks. It's attached to this board and it's attached to this board as per the drawing. In this top row, the next thing is going to be rate number 3, rate number 2, and the LFO LED. Now the LFO LED is going to go here and the on-off LED is going to go down here. I haven't drilled the on-off LED yet. I will get round to that. My drill's in the house, everyone's in bed. I mean, it's like, what, 4 in the morning here? So I don't want to go and wake everyone up drilling. I'll run the LFO LED to here, and then the negative from that can just go straight up to our buzz bar or whatever you want to call it there. Ideal. Moving on to the bottom row now, we can see that we have our live, which we've connected here. And then moving further along, we've got these green wires that are labelled up VREF. And that is in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th tag along. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th tag right here. One of them is going across to our board 2 and the other is going across to board 3. Now board 2 I'm going to run along the centre line here Board 3, I'm going to run down and round the outside edge of this enclosure to here, and then it's going to come over the top and go to board 3. So frustrating wiring these into the off board or out of enclosure lid without having a little cable tiebacks to run it through. It's annoying me already, but we'll soldier on. After VREF, which is the one that we've just run, the green wire, we have VREF2, which is this brown wire. Don't need to worry about that, it's not going anywhere. Then we've got rate 1. So if we just follow that along, VREF comes here from the top row. It's this blue wire here. It joins into this one here. If we look at our drawing, it is right here. Then next we have rate 1, which is the bottom of this 10k resistor here. So rate 1, I'm going to run it up the center here, round, and then to the 1 position, which on most other like volume pedals and stuff like that, that would be the ground connection. So, but on here, it's going to this 10k. So I'm going to run that. Then if we look at our drawing again, we can see that there's nothing going into the next one, only link wires. And then the next one along after that, we've got depth 1, which is this pot over here. And again, it's depth 1 is the one on the right hand side because the pot's upside down. Then if we keep following along, we've got depth 3. And then we've also got something labelled up as rate 3 alternative. Now I need to figure out what that means because rate 3 has already got a connection in. So if we look at it, I see what he's done. If you look at our drawing, you can see that we've got rate 3 on the top row, and on the bottom row he's put rate 3 alternative because there's a link wire in there. You can wire either of them up. So I'll skip that rate 3 alternative because we've already wired that in. Now we're on to board 2. And if we start on the top row, there is only 2 connections in this top row that we haven't already wired up. Second tag along says that pin 3 MN3007, right? If we follow that along and go down to our next tag board, we can see that in the 1, 2, 3, 4, in the 5th tag along, it says pin 3 MN3007. So basically what it's saying is them 2 points joined together. He hasn't drawn a wire in because he'd have to do like a snake's wedding a drawing. Makes total sense. Then if we keep going along right the way to the other end, 3rd tag from the other end, we can see that our 9 volts, or 9 volts, I keep going to say 9 volts, 12 volts DC, where that comes into this board, it goes out again the other end. So at any point on this red loop, we can take a wire out, and that's going to go across and go down to board number 3. Bottom row of our tag board number 2. First of all, we can see that we have in pin 3, we have a wire that's labelled up as pin 7 and 8 MN3007. That is here, pin 3, just here. It's where we joined all these caps, all these legs together with a 56k resistor. Now that's going to come along and go into the first tag on our tag board number 3 off the board. So I'll wire that in. We've already wired in on the bottom row. Oh, sorry, on the bottom row we've also got depth 2. So we can wire that in. And there's this green wire here that is labelled up as hashtag. And if we look at board number 3 on the bottom row, you can see the 3rd bit tag along is labelled up also as hashtag. So we're going to run that to there. Keep going. We've got another ground connection that runs across to the ground connection on our next board. I might run that just straight from the ground connection on the jack. Who knows? Doesn't matter where that comes from. Same again. We've already wired up this red wire. It's not coming from the underside of this board. Then we've also got 2 orange wires. Is that orange or yellow? My eyesight's bad. 2 orange wires. One of them is going to the output, and the other one is going to the top row of the 3rd board. I'm just going to go ahead and wire all them in straight to where they've got to go. The output is going to go over here to the front right hand side pin of our 3-pole double throw switch. Board number 2 is fully wired up. Now we're going on to board number 3. Technically board number 3 should be pretty much done because all of the wires are coming from the other boards inside here. So if we have a look at our drawing, we can see in the top row we have our first tag, which is labelled up 7 and 8 MN3007. That's this one. It's definitely wired up. Then next we move down and we have pin 3 MN3007. We definitely wired that one up. Then we have our, this is a bit that I don't think we've wired up, is our earth connections. So there's a load on the top row, it's all this black wire. And then also there's another wire that goes round and goes to the bottom row. Now, I haven't added in that wire, the little link wire. All I've got is the actual links between the tags on each side. So what I need to do is I need to run an earth from this point here on our tag board round to one of the earth connections on this side. Doesn't matter which one. I'm probably going to pick this first one here, which is, how many tags along is it? Let's have a count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tags along. So I'm going to pick this connection here. So we'll go from here round to here, and then we'll run another wire out. It'll come up and over the top. Instead of connecting to the earth on one of our boards, I'm just going to run it round and connect it straight in, or straight onto this buzz bar here. We keep going along. We have our green wire that come from all the way over here before, which it come from VREF, if you remember. We have fitted that. Then we've got our orange wire that we've just fitted from the last board, and I realised that I've done all my wires in blue to make it colour coded, and someone's going to tell me I should colour code my wires, or that they colour code their wires because it's better, blah blah blah. And I know it's harder to fault find, but I just like how it looks when all the wires are the same colour. I don't care if it's harder. I'm willing to work harder to fix it, or to work harder wiring it up. I just don't care. Anyway, so that orange wire is in. We've got our 9 volt. We've wired that in. Our earth, that's the one we've got to do, is the earth. Anyway, we've already planned that in. And then the last tag on the top row is the input. So we definitely haven't got that in. We need to fit the input. Okay, that's everything off the boards wired up. I've got this mess to deal with. I'm going to get some cable ties around that in a bit. I've also wired in the earth from this board. I wired it to the earth on our 3-pole double throw switch in the centre. And then I've wired that into our jacks. All that's left is to add in an on-off LED, which will be over here. I need to drill that and put it in. And it'll come from here with a current limiting resistor, and we'll take 9 volts straight from here. Our input come from this tag here on our input jack round to the input here. Output will come from this tag here on the output jack round, and that'll go to here, and then our link wire. And that is it. So I'm going to crack on and get that done, and then hopefully this thing powers up. Wish me luck. Wiring up 3 tag boards in an enclosure like this is stressful enough, but I can already tell something's wrong. The second I plugged a tiny bit of power into it, I got an immense amount of heat. The input resistor almost burnt my fingers. I could just smell burning components. To any of you who build pedals, you'll know that smell, that sort of pungent, thick. Oh my God. So I know something's wrong. Now the question is, are we going to get any sound? This thing could cook the expensive chips, and then I'm in a world of pain. Okay, so I thought I'd try it out quickly. And as soon as I turned it on, I could smell a little bit of burning, which is not awesome, I might add. I could smell a bit of burning. And this resistor here, which is our 33 ohm resistor, which is our first current limiting resistor, was getting really hot. So I figured maybe something shortened to earth, because that's what happens. You short your power supply to earth, you get a lot of current draw, which makes it get hot. And if we go to this side of the resistor, we can see, well, you can't see because I haven't got that in a position where you can see it. We can see that we have 1 ohm of resistance to earth. So now we know we've got a problem. The thing is drawing too much current, which is why this resistor is overheating. The main thing that's going to draw this amount of current is a direct short to earth. To find that earth, all I have to do is go to the power input on the board and test it to earth and see if we get a low continuity. If we get a low continuity, that means that we're shorting to earth somewhere in the circuit. And the best thing to do is just to break the circuit down into small bite-sized chunks. So I'll remove a wire, cut the circuit in half, and then I'll be able to test to see if we still have a short to earth on both halves of the circuit. Whichever half presents that short to earth, I'll know where to start looking. And then we just split it further down and split it further down into little sections, and we methodically go through until we find the area of whichever tag board or whatever it is that's shortened to earth. Now, in my experience, it's mostly going to be that I've put a wire in the wrong place or something along them lines. I'm hoping it's something as simple as that, but stick around and let's find out. Now, to find out what board it's on, it's easy because these boards are all interconnected. First thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to remove this pin here. I'm going to take that out, and that is our earth connection to this board here. And if the short to earth goes away, I know that the earth is somewhere on this board. If it's still there, I'll remove this wire and then check it again. And then if the earth goes away, then I'll know it's on this board. And then if the earth still doesn't go away, I know it's on this board. Fantastic. So let's have a go at that. I'm just going to wet the tip. Well, hey. Right, so let's remove the wire that is supplying that board. That's that wire removed now. Careful not to let it touch earth. I've done that before where you're chasing your earth and you're like, what's going on? Oh, look, we're earthing out. In fact, it wouldn't matter in this case. So now if we go to our, I'll put that there. If we go to our resistor, we can see there's still a connection to earth. So I might as well put that back in place while I'm here. Just so then I don't forget about it or forget where it goes or whatever. That's in. Now we just remove this one. I mean, I could well have wired something in the wrong place or maybe something's just shorting out. If we go to it now, we can see that there's, what, 11, 10k. There's probably still some voltage floating around in here on one of the caps. So 10k to earth. The earth is on this board here, unfortunately. So now I need to try and figure out what the heck is going on and where this earth is coming from. So, yeah, well, I'll be able to test that actually if I go to earth and then go to this board where it attaches in. We can see that it's clearly earthed. So there's something going on there. I'm going to go ahead and check all of my connections and see if there's anything that could be possibly shortened to earth. Maybe I've just put an earth in the wrong place. We are indeed narrowing this down. So I've removed this connection here, which if we look at our drawing is right here where it goes into our collector. So everything after the collector on the board is now removed, or well, 9-volt wires is removed. And yet still, when I go to the 9-volt connection here, we are, we're getting an earth now. We're still getting an earth. But if I go over to this 9-volt connection here, are we getting an earth there? No. That's interesting. So the earth is definitely up this end. So if I attach that back in, just so then I know where I am, I like to put the wires back in as I'm going. I'll touch up the soldering later. So now we move to the next one along, which is over here. The other end of that wire, if I pull that out, now we've removed that connection as well. Give it a test. Still going to earth. Brilliant. Okay, check this out. So over here, I've snipped this little wire here, this link wire, which on our drawing we can see comes from the 56k down to the MN3101. So this here. And now the earth, or the ground, is the opposite side. So this side here, nothing. This side here, short to earth. Now if we look at our drawing, we can see that this pin doesn't connect to anything. So with both op amps removed, this really shouldn't go to anything. That there is literally a link wire. And this point on the board, on the other board, isn't earthed. Seems really strange that that's connected to earth, because that pin, which is essentially this pin on our drawing, is not connected to anything apart from this pin here, which is also not connected to anything. So the question is, let's solder that back in quickly. I've got to be quick because I'm late for bloody work now. If I was to remove, say, maybe if I remove the leg of our op amp, let's try that. And there's the leg of our op amp moved. Is it still going to earth? No. So that's interesting. So what that means is, it means that the bottom of this is connecting to earth. So I think that this connection here somehow is connected to this. I don't know how, but if we go across them, no, megohm, and that's to earth. See, that's connected to earth. That should be connected to nothing now. You see that? So that connection is basically pin 1 of our MN3101. That shouldn't be connected to anything because I've removed the part of it that connects to the circuit. So it's basically just dangling in the wind, and it's still connected to earth. So that means that I've got a short somewhere there. And I'm wondering if it's going to have destroyed my clock chip now, because I just don't understand how that's shorting out to earth. It's insane. I'm going to pull this board up and we'll see what's underneath. Let this be an important message to you. Look at this. So I've removed this IC socket. Bearing in mind this is for the clock timer. And we've also got our delay IC on the same board. Look at this. I haven't bloody cut the centre of the holes. So shorting out both halves of this op amp. So I've probably trashed my my clock timer and my expensive delay chip. Fantastic. Well done, Joe. Easy mistake. I rushed through it. Anyone can make that mistake. So you need to look at your builds and do it methodically, one step at a time. Clearly, I was rushing because of the problem with the mic. I mean, I could blame anyone in the world for this. Oh, it was someone else's fault. But the microphone not working probably stressed me out, which means that I was rushing through things. I wasn't paying attention. And, you know, these things happen. So the best thing to do is take your time and keep checking your work. At every stage, stop and say, have I missed something out? And what you don't do is put an expensive op amp into a socket when you haven't bloody cut the centre of the strip, so then it's not shorting out. Damn. Oh well, at least it gives us a chance to display how we fault find, and it's both bloody sockets on this this tagboard, which is interesting. So I'm going to have to redo both of these sockets. I'm probably going to have to sit them up off the board just to be able to get them in there. Not ideal. Time to stop whining and let's get this done, and hope that the fact that we've drawn an inhumane amount of current, especially through our current limiting resistor on the way in, which got incredibly hot. Let's hope that we haven't trashed our chips. No words to describe how annoyed with myself I am right now. Let's make some new ones of them for both of these sockets, get them installed and see where we are. Okay, here we have it. I've got both of my op amps, or my sockets, fitted in. I've raised them up off the board. I'm hoping that this is going to work, and I really hope I haven't trashed my clock timer and my MN3007. So let's get them fitted. Here's my MN3007. That's going in the first socket with the little notch out pointing towards the centre of the board. The chances that these work are pretty damn slim, let's face it. I mean, I put so much current through this by not cutting the centre of these strips and separating the two halves of the op amp out. I've basically shorted out both op amps. I'll be amazed if either of them work. And out of the whole bloody project, the whole thing, the only ones that I can't replace are these. I just haven't got spares because they're like super rare, super expensive, bloody old parts. Of all of it, this is the one bit I couldn't mess up and then fix. So I'm an idiot. Now, same again with the clock timer. It faces in the opposite direction now, if we remember rightly. There's that in. Now, let's get a sample done and hopefully it turns on. Come on. Okay, so just put the power in and we see straight away that our little blinking LED is working. So I'm hoping that means that the clock timer is working. I mean, does it increase? Slow down? Yes, it does. So this is a positive. Hopefully we're going to get some sound out of it. What do you think? Do you think that this is going to work or not? Write in the comments quickly. Let me know if you think that I've trashed my chip or whether it's going to work. Now that we think we found the problem and we think we fixed it. However, I absolutely burnt out my expensive chips. I'm going to have to order more. That is horrific. But while we wait for the chips, let's pontificate. If you're building a pedal like this or any pedal and you get to that point where you turn it on and you're expecting this lovely sound and you get nothing, there's nothing more soul destroying. Don't think of it as a defect. Don't think of it as a problem. Don't think of the pedal as being broken. Think about it as an opportunity for you to learn more and show yourself how awesome you are by fixing it. If you just take that confidence and say, do you know what, nothing can stop me, I'm going to smash this out, you'll feel much better in the long run and ultimately you'll be able to build more pedals and get better at doing it. Okay, so I've got my new chips and we're ready to go. They're installed and listen to this. Can you hear that ticking? Now I think that's the LFO, the low frequency or light frequency oscillator. Don't know. Right, let's get fake red out the way a sec. Not too sure what it is, but I have got a workaround. So I've read online that it's something to do with the filter in the LFO. I've tried several things, checked my circuit, it looks to be wired correctly. I mean, I'm sure I could ask the maker of the circuit if he knows how to fix this, but that would be admitting defeat. So I thought maybe we could filter the LFO to earth and see if we can get rid of this thing. So I've been through several different cap values, but what I'm going to use is this, a 470 NF tropical fish cap. And I'm going to go from different points on the LFO to earth. And the only two that make any difference are these two here. So there's this pin here. If you go from there to the enclosure, that chills it out. And then same from the other side of the all but disappears. But you'll notice that the blue light slows down with that one as well. Oh, it didn't that time. But basically, both of them do make a difference. Not all that much difference compared to going from our repeat pot. So if you go from the repeat pot center to earth, no noise whatsoever. Noise. No noise. Right, now that's interesting. So what about if you go from like repeat pot number 1? No effect whatsoever. Not surprising because I think that goes to ground. And then repeat pot number 3. It changes the click. But if we go repeat pot to earth, no noise. Now the question is, do we still get signal? So we turn on the pedal. I'll just be using fake red. I'm not going to play anything. I'm literally going to just strum the guitar. There's our chorus sound. So if I strum the guitar while this is installed or while I'm holding this on and there's no clicking sound, that means we've won. If I strum the guitar and the signal goes away, i.e. we lose our chorus effect, then we're knackered. From our repeat pot, center pin, so pin 2, there's no clicking sound. We still got chorus, and if we strum a chord and then take this cap off, let's see how much effect it has on the chorus. A little tiny bit, but not much. I'm going to go ahead and install this 470 NF to ground from the repeat pot. And I know that a massive tropical fish is overkill, but I don't care. I want to use it. Once we've got that done, I'll get this buttoned up. I mean, as you can see here nicely, I've went ahead and fitted all these cable ties for the umbilical cord and all that. And now, of course, it is time for the sound sample, the bit you've all been waiting for. But before we get there, I'd just like to say thank you for watching. Thank you for watching all this way through. And if you could, please help support Hello Sailor Effects and this channel by buying some merch. We have a brand new Wet the Tip t-shirt or new caps. I found a new supplier and they're pretty awesome, I've got to say. If you have any ideas for t-shirts or merch, please let me know in the comments and I'm happy to accommodate. At this moment in time, things are pretty tight, and if you can't afford to buy a t-shirt to support the channel, that's awesome. If you just hit the like button or the subscribe and the bell icon, That'll help us immensely. That'll signal to YouTube that I bring you value and they'll share my channel to more people. Thank you for watching the show, and I'd love to know what you think of the tones of the CE-2. We're going to start off with one of my favourite sounds. For this we've got the gold top, the single cut, and we've got our speed or our rate just above mid chips. I haven't got loads of chorus on there. It just sounds it sounds right for this for me, and you'll instantly recognise the tune. We're on the bridge humbucker with it all the way up, and here we have one of my Randy Rhodes distortion pedals. This one's got OCP optical or photo transistors in it. So let's just hear. Here's my clean tone, and then here's with the Randy Rhodes. And now the chorus. Let's give everything a full. Bit of a wobbly sound, I wouldn't normally use that. Turn the rate down, it sounds pretty usable. Well, that was an absolutely insane project. I'm so happy that we managed to get this on the go. I'd like to just say a huge thank you right at the end to the man Alexifry, if that's your name. Thank you, mate. I really appreciate you writing this all out on Tagboard. I really appreciate you creating the layout for this on Tagboard and also putting your project online for everyone to see. It's immense. If you enjoyed this video, you're going to love this video where I mod the Shaky Jimmy.